Hello everyone, it is Friday, and that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. I'm Nizzahon, and I post a new MTG related Top 10 list every week. Today, we're looking at the top 10 cards from Kaladesh for EDH and Commander. I should note that I generally don't talk about actual commanders in these lists, mostly because all of the new legendary creatures that were printed can serve as commanders, although some are better than others. But this list is more about the cards that you would actually want to show up in your 99 card deck instead of your commander itself, and it's made up of the cards that I think are most deserving of showing up in the format. Before we get started, I do want to mention that my videos are now being featured on 5colorcombo.com, a great website for Magic the Gathering content. Right now, 5Color Combo is building the first drafting, brewing, and playtesting app for web and mobile that will work together seamlessly. They will be launching a Kickstarter on October 3rd, and in the meantime, you can check out their website, which you can find information about in the video's description. Now, let's get started on this list of the top 10 cards for EDH and Kaladesh. At number 10, I have Wildest Dreams. In Commander, cards that are amazing in the late game are usually pretty great, because most games in Commander go pretty long. Wildest Dreams is definitely good in the late games and can grant you some insane card advantage and card selection. Eternal Witness is good in Commander because it lets you get back a powerful card like a board sweeper or other bomb. Wildest Dreams can get you back everything from your graveyard you ever wanted. If this resolves and you have some good cards in your graveyard, it's going to go a long way in securing you a win. At number 9, I have Inventors Fair. Tutor effects are always powerful in EDH, since it is a singleton format with a larger than normal deck, and Inventors Fair provides any deck there is with an artifact tutor, which is pretty nice and not something every color has access to. It does ask you to have Metalcraft, but that's not as hard in EDH as it is in other formats, since most people run some mix of mana rocks and equipment. The life gain doesn't hurt either, and this card will be at its best, of course, in any EDH deck that cares about artifacts, but almost all decks run artifacts you want to be searching for, whether it's your Soul Ring or your Skull Clamp or something like that, so this card is likely to see play in lots of places, though again, at its best in an artifact-based deck. At number 8, I have Gonti, Lord of Luxury. I know I said I wasn't going to include legendary creatures, but this one is included because he is super good in your deck itself, and in fact, he isn't all that interesting as a commander. But a 4-mana 2/3 who can trade with anything thanks to Death Touch that also provides you with the most powerful card off your opponent's top deck, off the top 4 cards of their deck, is pretty sweet, especially because EDH is a format that is loaded with big, splashy, powerful spells, and stealing one of those is a pretty big deal. At number 7, I have Saheeli's Artistry. This card has been on my EDH radar since it was the first card that was spoiled for Kaladesh, and even after a ton of other cards were spoiled, it still managed to make the list. As I've mentioned already, EDH is a format that is filled with both powerful permanents and tons of artifacts, and as a result, even if you have an empty board, the chances are good that you can copy a strong artifact of your opponent's, as well as a strong creature that's on the board elsewhere. That kind of card advantage is awesome, especially when you're making copies of bombs, and again, EDH is a format where there will be more bombs than normal. At number 6, I have Insidious Will. I have to say that I'm mostly not a fan of counterspells in EDH. If a player has a deck absolutely loaded with them, I question whether or not they have a soul, since they choose to do such a thing in what is primarily a format about having fun and doing silly things. But running a few is a reasonable thing to do, and I think Insidious Will is the kind you want to run, since it is loaded with flexibility. It can just outright counter a spell when you need it to, sure, but it can also do some things that may even be more powerful, such as redirecting a removal spell at one of your opponent's dudes, copying one of your overpowered spells, as well as one of your opponent's, and this is once again very powerful in EDH because there's more of these very powerful spells, but the counterspell aspect of it is also going to be relevant. At number 5, I have Demon of Dark Schemes. I've been talking a lot about big bomby cards, and this is one of those. This guy's ridiculous, loaded with tons of lines of relevant text. In addition to providing you with a pretty formidable body as a 5/5 flyer, he also rids the board of smaller creatures and provides you energy when things die. Then he can use that energy to bring back a creature from any graveyard, and obviously there's some synergy there in that if he kills small creatures, you get energy back. I know I've said it a lot here, but in EDH, a format with lots of big crazy creatures in it, the ability to bring back a strong creature from the graveyard is particularly powerful. At number 4, I have Fumigate. Board sweepers are great in EDH, I don't think that's any sort of secret, and Fumigate is another one that players playing white should consider running. Nuking the whole board is a pretty good deal for 5 mana, and so is gaining a ton of life to make sure you can make it a little bit deeper into the game. At number 3, I have 3 Gearhulks. I don't think the red one or the green one are going to be particularly great in EDH, though I think both of them are going to see play somewhere. These are the 3 who I wanted to mention the most because they seem to have the most potential to become staples to me. Cataclysmic Gearhulk comes with a pretty powerful board sweeping effect, and one that you can take advantage of by choosing him as your artifact and another large creature as the creature you choose for his Cataclysm effect. Board wipes, as I've already mentioned, are great in EDH, especially in multiplayer, and one with a formidable body is pretty good. Noxious Gearhulk is also really good, though not quite as good, I think, as Cataclysmic Gearhulk. He comes into play and sports a unconditional kill spell with an evasive body that also gains you a bit of life, all things that you should be interested in if you are playing black. Finally, there's Torrential Gearhulk, who once again gives you a large body, this one with flash, and also a strong enter the battlefield ability. This time, this Gearhulk can copy an instant in your graveyard for free. Now, the thing about the Torrential Gearhulk that makes it not quite as good as the other two, who I think are going to be good in any... Cataclysmic Gearhulk is good in any white deck, Noxious Gearhulk good in any black deck, Torrential Gearhulk not necessarily good in any blue deck. This is because it requires there to be instants in your graveyard. If you don't have sort of a critical mass of instants, say something like 10, then Torrential Gearhulk's probably not worth running, but if you have 10 or more, Torrential Gearhulk gets to be pretty great and should probably just be in your deck. At number 2, I have Cultivator's Caravan. This thing is a strictly better Manalith or Darksteel Forge, both cards that have seen some consistent play in EDH because of how good of mana fixing they do. This does the same thing those do, in that it can produce mana of any color for 3 mana as a mana rock, but this mana rock can also bash into your opponent for 5 in the right board state, making it both a win condition of sorts and a mana rock, things EDH players are always happy to have in their decks. On top of that, it can dodge a lot of the most played sorcery speed board sweepers and other removal spells in the format. At number 1, I have something that I think is pretty obvious, but that's why it's number 1. The new fast lands will of course be staples in EDH decks that have their respective colors in them, mostly because the majority of multicolored EDH decks are always happy to run 2-color lands, especially when they have the upside of coming into play untapped sometimes. That does it for this week's MTG Top 10. If you found this video useful, click the like button. If you think there are any cards I overlooked, let me know in the comments below. And if you want to make sure you catch MTG Top 10 each and every week, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.